Hello and welcome to the 2025 Season 2, Week 7 NextGen Track Guide by Team Conti Sim Performance. My name is Michael Conti and I'll be taking you for a 30-lap run around Texas Motor Speedway. So compared to the last time we came to Texas, which was just about a year or so ago, some things have changed in the car, nothing major, but figured it was about time to refresh this video and do another run and detail what you should be expecting this coming week. Some things that haven't changed, we could start with the weather. The weather is very overcast, it's very cold. Seems like it's going to continue to get cooler as the sessions go farther into the evening. So lots of speed, lots of grip, big humidity though, so engine power is a little bit down. And because of that, we're going to be sticking with fourth gear for this solo car run, depending on weather conditions, density of your traffic and the cars around you. If you have enough draft, you may need to put it into fifth at the end of the front stretch, but you should be able to just keep it in fourth in most cases and be just fine. So talking about how to drive Texas, nothing really has changed there necessarily. Turn 1 and 2, very wide sweeping entry, flat corner. Definitely the tougher end of the track of the two. A little bit of brake on entry down into the 3/8 mark to induce some turn with the front. And then 3 and 4, as you can see right there, just a small security lift on entry, and then wide open, just absolutely hauling through the rest of the corner. A little lift on entry will probably go a long way in keeping some energy out of the right side tires. Even though the track is cool, this track still does put a lot of load into the right sides in 3 and 4, so while your temperatures aren't necessarily going to be as high as they would in normal conditions, say track temp that's well over 100 versus what we have here, you can still wear these tires very quickly. You can balloon the pressures and lose grip. So a little lift in 3 and 4 is probably a good thing at the beginning of the run. As I'm sure most of you know, if you've driven really any car around Texas, it's really easy to overdrive entry into 1. And everybody seems to have a different approach on how to get into 1. I think I'm a little bit more on the side of wide sweeping entry versus the narrow, shallow, straight shot to the bottom approach. But regardless though, the way that you lift, so lifting early and using maybe 10-15% brake, that's going to go a long way in helping get down to the bottom and not shove the fronts through the first half of the corner. First half of turn 1 and 2, you'll be very front limited, meaning that the car won't exactly want to get down to the bottom. Exit of 2, especially later in the run, you'll be rear limited, where it gets harder to hook up the right rear tire and make forward bite. So to combat some of that rear instability you may face later, right here, instead of me going to 100% throttle where I can, based on the amount of grip I have early on, I kept a bit of throttle out of it right there just to nurse that right rear a little bit. Now you can see that's slowed my lap time down about a quarter second to 3/10. And if I was in a race, I really would be okay with that. You want to be 1 to 2, maybe 3/10 off your optimal the first 10 to 15, just to ensure you've got something to race with on the back half of the run. You think here a fuel run is 60 plus laps, so you don't want to get to lap 30 and feel like you're out of tire, because you're going to start hemorrhaging lap time and track position quickly compared to those around you who have taken care of their tires. So big takeaways there. Watch your entry to turn 1, make sure you've got that little bit of brake, get the thing pointed down to the bottom, keep a little bit of throttle out of it through the halfway point to 3/4 point of 1 and 2 to save the right rear. And then in 3 and 4, just a little crack of the throttle on entry, and then right back on it. Dirty air is definitely going to affect the car this week, really at both ends of the track. 1 and 2, as I said before, you're a little bit front limited as is. with any car here, so if you get tucked up behind somebody at entry, it's probably going to make you even tighter. So make sure that you're offsetting either a headlight lower on entry or a full lane higher on entry, so you're completely out of the wake of the car in front of you. 3 and 4, you really won't feel the dirty air until you get to about the center, where you become grip limited. And at that point, it'll be hard to follow that white line and wrap it, and that dirty air will really want to make the car push out to the wall on exit, and we don't want that, because then you're just shoving the right rear, and if you're hitting the fence, that's no good either. So watch your dirty air, and you can explore different lines here. 1 and 2, and I'll show that in about 5 laps or so. 1 and 2, you can move up the track as the bottom gets slick and greasy and rubbered in. You can move off the bottom and make some good momentum on exit. And 3 and 4, you can get pretty creative, and you can rip the fence down there and make some really big momentum on corner exit. Might be a little bit less potent this week because we've got so much grip in 3 and 4, and you're basically wide open on the bottom as is. But if the track gets hotter, or if the bottom of 3 and 4 gets slick, that top is really going to be good. Two tires this week should definitely be a thing, just because when you're pushing all out, it takes probably 3 to 4 laps to be able to achieve your best lap of the run. So if you have a 10-15 lap sprint to the finish, and you've got maybe 10 or 15 already on the tires, I would definitely take 2. They'll fire off faster, and you really won't fall off enough in that short of a run to lose whatever time and track position you gained at the front of the run, if that makes sense. So 2 are really good. Short fueling is always really good. If you're a customer of ours and you have our notes page, make sure you take a look at that to see what the recommended adjustments are. Also check out our Discord as well throughout the week to see how those adjustments change, because that's the interesting thing. We'll start out a week and say, okay, go plus however many on your left rear perch and so on and so forth in the right rear, but that can change throughout the week as we get more and more feedback. That's one of the benefits of being in the private Discord channels with the quarterly and yearly subscriptions, is you get that dialogue, you get that discourse in Discord, and you really learn what's best as others go through what you'll be facing throughout the week. So we're crossing the 15 lap mark. I started out in the 29.7s. I'll probably be at a high 9, low 0 right here. Just keep it pinned in 3 and 4, and you can see plenty of grip to keep it wide open in 3 and 4. Just trying to be cognizant of what I'm doing to the right rear, but still good grip there. I'll start moving around. I don't expect to be quicker doing this, but just want to show you the different opportunities. The 1 and 2, left front, pretty much right on that seam right there as you get to the center. Really good when the bottom gets slicked off. You can see even on a clean track right here, less than a tenth off. So that's a pretty good avenue, good alternative. Down to 1 and 2 again. I'll go even higher. This top at times can be good. Should get a nice run on corner exit. Yeah, good run off right there. Another tenth slower than the middle, but still a good run. I'll go very top in 3 and 4. Watch the bump right there. And you can see definitely not quicker right now in 3 and 4, just because we're wide open on the bottom, but still could be good later in the race. Back down to the bottom, really get the thing slowed up. Watch my throttle, don't slide the right rear. I'll lose a little bit off the corner compared to running the top. It's still a net gain of about a tenth and a half. Down to 3 and 4, just a slight crack, back to a full lift. Paint the white line with the left front, keep it nice and low. 4.5 tenth gain right there, back into the 30-0s. So with these track conditions by myself right here, I would say my opportunity is in 1 and 2. I can try to utilize the second groove, but you can see right there, just kind of hard to put the power down. I'm also in the loosest point of the run as well. It's probably good to mention. It seems like 15 to 19 we're at our loosest, and then after that the car starts to tighten back up. So if you're doing runs on the benchmark setup like I am, and you get to lap 15 or so and you get loose, try to get through that 4 or 5 lap phase and see if you come out the other side neutral. Back to the bottom. Yeah, much better grip right there. Walk the car out to the wall. 3/4 of a tenth up down the back. Try to go full throttle here, get it turned in. Still plenty of grip to do so. So big opportunity to create runs in 3 and 4, use the draft down the front and try to make a pass in and through 1 and 2. Draft is going to be huge this week with as much throttle time, on throttle time as we have. I'll go a lane up in 3 and 4. Should just be slower with no gain anywhere, but good to see what it does. Yep, a little bit slower. Back down to 1 and 2, out to the wall. Nice wide entry, good natural front turn. Just touch that white line and drive up off. A little crack on entry, back to full throttle. And just a little bit quicker than the lap before. A little more aggressive with throttle right there, but I'm getting to the point in the run where the car is getting back to neutral, so I can do that. Try to go full throttle here. A little front limited. Yeah, front limited initially, and then onto the right rear center off. So now I'm going to start cracking the throttle consistently into 3 for the rest of this run. And I can feel my aggressiveness in 3 and 4 definitely heated up the right rear. So as I get down to 1 and 2 right there, it just becomes that much harder to get onto the throttle up off. A little slower than keeping it wide open, but still good and felt better as well. Should have a little bit more tire to use in 1 and 2. Down to 3 and 4, a little crack, and then back into it. Hook the white line. Really good grip right there. A little slower on entry this time. Try to be smoother on exit. And that it was, but just a bit slower. So that's where we get to the conversation of, is smoother always fast or faster? And the answer is no. And that's why, again, if you're a subscriber, if you look at my data, if we've talked about my data before, and you see those little micro corrections on exit, that's your speed right there. That's keeping up with the car and being right on the edge, keeping within the slip window, keeping within the grip of the tires, and maximizing pace, versus locking the throttle in place, being very smooth and easy with it, but then being a half a tenth slower. So that's a really good visual to sort of show you how you really have to be on top of this car to make the most speed. Very, very small window with the lack of side force, the small sidewall tires. You can get out of control very easily, but if you can keep it on that razor's edge, you're going to be fast. Really good exit off at 2 that time. For experiment's sake, I'm going to keep it wide open here, or at least try to. And yep, it made it. Just a little bit of a wider entry to make it work, but that was really good right there. 2 more to go. try to keep it wide open again. Pushing my luck. But nope, that felt really good. And one more lap to go. Give it all it's got here. Right on the edge of control. Lots of little corrections, still a net positive on exit. One more time wide open. And really good. Alright, so I'll finish this 30 here and I'll come around and do a green flag pit road attempt. So I'm going to enter turn 3 like I typically would, maybe a little crack of gas just to make sure that I'm committed to the bottom. Get about halfway around this corner to the end of that second set of billboards. Come in nice and smooth, and 45 at the line. Alright, so we'll take a look at pit road entry and the two ends of the track here for just a few minutes, and then that'll be it for week 7. Alright, pit road entry first. Let's get to that. Get outside the car. There we go. Please excuse my bad spec map. This is my first day. So around 3 and 4, second set of billboards. Spot those, start braking. Do most of your braking on the banking. Cross over as straight as you can. 45 at the line. You don't want to enter this early in the corner. You want to get around the corner as much as possible. You can see it come off the bottom a little bit just to straighten my angle of attack off the track. Line brakes down to the apron. And a nice straight shot into pit road. Could have definitely been more aggressive and gained a little bit of time right there, but in a green flag pit stop setting where, you know, you're not trying to get 11 tenths out of it, I would say that was fairly good. I'd give that an 8 out of 10. So not bad. All right, let's look at both ends of the track, the lift points, brake pressure, things of that sort. And we'll start with 1 and 2. So looking at the hot lap here, which again was pretty deep into the run, lap 5. Could have even been later if I was pushing it. Big thing right here already, you can see I'm not trying to cut the dog leg. That's where a lot of people make their first mistake at Texas and really any of the tracks that are shaped like this down the front. They try to cut this dog leg really aggressively to shave off width or distance rather. And in doing so, as they get here, right, imagine if you're cutting this second dog leg and we have to be entering turn 1 out by the wall to maximize the angle of attack there. If I'm coming from all the way down here, I've got to drive my car straight out to the wall and then I've got to yank it off the wall back into 1. So it's a very pointy sort of approach. It's almost like a triangle, right? I don't want to triangle the approach. I want to, let's say, U the approach. I want a U. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of distance between the left side of my car and the grass in the second dog leg. And that way, when I get to the middle of the dog leg, I'm not quite parallel with this wall, but my angle to get up to it is much less aggressive than if I was trying to come off the bottom here. So U the approach as opposed to Ving or making the approach in a very pointy triangular way. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. It does to me, right? We don't want to do one of these. We want to do one of these. All right, so into 1 here, out to the wall, all the way out to the wall. You want to use all of the space here because you've got this big, wide, sweeping entry. And a lot of times people get lost and then they start entering from down here, usually because they were coming from just about clipping the grass. So they never get here, they get here. And then, well, what happens, you pinch off your entry and you get down to like the 3/8 mark in the corner, and you've got no front turn, and the thing wants to just shove off the bottom. We don't like that. We don't want that. This U approach, giving a wider berth versus the grass, allows you to maximize the width on entry and maximize your angle of attack so that when you get down to the 3/8, get down to the center, you've got a lot of really good natural front turn available to you. As far as a lift point, you've got your AAA sign right here. I'm lifting just past that, maybe a star or two past that. And it's going to be a quick lift because when we go to an intermediate where you're braking, you have to have a quick lift. You get all the way off the gas and then on the brake. If we're at an intermediate where we're never touching the brake, that's when we have that slow progressive lift at the top of the pedal that goes into a quick lift at the bottom. Well, that's not the case here because again, we're braking. Okay, so you want a quick lift into one so you can get on the brakes. So quick lift, little overlap at the bottom of the pedal, which is normal, but immediately on the brakes, and it's maybe a 5 to 10% max brake pressure on entry. That'll increase a little bit as you get deeper into the run and you lose grip, but 5 to 10% brake max in a one, it's not a lot, it's just enough to get the thing to turn, set the nose, and commit to entry. Nice wide angle of attack. And as I get to the start of the safer barrier, the inside wall, I'm not even close to the bottom. And again, if you were to straight line the entry and go really shallow, you'd already be to the bottom here. But then you've got a lot of corner left. And then you're just pinched, pinched, pinched. Can't get on the gas. You have no turn. And then you end up way offline on exit because you started the entry too early. So I'm still turning in past the safer barrier. I'm still turning in at the Texas 1, which is out here. I'm still turning in. I'm really not to the lowest point until just about at the break in this wall, which is way around the corner. And you can see even before I get to my lowest point, I'm already throttling up. So my car has so much natural rotation and I've depleted enough speed on entry because of my lift that was fairly early and my little bit of brake that I've got enough rotation, I've got enough angle to where I can start throwing throttle back into it as I'm still turning down the track. And now, as I'm basically to my lowest point, I'm at, call it 85-90% throttle, and I've got plenty of grip to really get after this throttle and fully commit way before the exit. So compared to a lot of people, and maybe compared to what you've done in the past, my entry is much slower. But what's not slower is my exit. Even my center, like my dead center in the corner, may be slower because I'm using that entry to center to set up my center off. My center off is so critical at Texas because for the rest of the lap, you're basically wide open. You're full throttle. So if your exit of 2 is compromised and slow, and you aren't lifting in 3 and 4, and that means you're going to be slow in 3 and 4, and you're going to be slow through the rest of the lap thereafter because you screwed up 2 corners ago, right? And if you're not lifting, you have no opportunity to do something better to close that delta, to make up that speed you lost way in the other end of the track. So if you have to give up a little bit on entry in a 1, do it. Now I understand that when you get in a race, I'm fully aware of this. When you get in a race, you're going to have people that are trying to bomb it in and throw it in and straight line shallow entry. You have to be aware of that. And if they're doing that around you, okay, maybe you don't enter all the way out here. Maybe you move your line down a half a car width or so, just enough to put yourself in a position where they can't in good faith, like they don't feel as if they can throw it in on you. You know, make it a little bit more challenging for them if you understand that that's what the cars around you dictate. What that doesn't mean is don't start straight lining like they are to block them. If somebody's going to throw it in on you and they're absolutely hell-bent on doing so, just let it happen at that point, okay? Because in 5 laps, 10 laps maybe, they're going to have no tires left more than likely, and you're going to blow right past them and leave them for the last 50 laps of the run. Whatever you can do at the beginning of the run to maintain track position, obviously do that because it's easier to keep it than it is to make it up later, usually. But don't change your execution, don't change your philosophy because those around you are pushing too hard and executing improperly early on. Run your own race, but be aware of what's going on around you. I really focus on that as we talk about 1 and 2 because that's a major point of concern and contention for the drivers I've worked with in the past. You know, when I coach and I give direction. I say, hey, widen out your entry to 1. The rebuttal is always, well, people are going to throw it in under me, and I don't know how to defend that. I don't know how to counteract that without completely changing my line. And so that's why I wanted to spend a couple minutes just on this particular instance, because this will be something to watch for in your races. But anyway, with all of that being said, wide entry to turn 1, 5 to 10% brake, and you're not going to be to your lowest point until way around 1 and 2, and you're pretty much to the opening in the inside wall. So one more time at full speed, then we'll turn to 3 and 4, which shouldn't take too long since it's pretty much wide open. And right there, right there, that throttle input was pretty much me going 95% of optimal pace. The following lap, I talked about keeping some throttle out of it. You can see right there, instead of going immediately to 80-ish% throttle, my initial throttle application plateaued at 50, and then slowly progressed from there. And obviously I ran about, call it 3/10 slower, so gave up a lot of lap time, but that right there helped me end the run much faster than I could have if I continued to bomb 29 7s and 8s consistently through the first 10. So just wanted to point that out as well. So looking at the hot lap again, 3 and 4, down the back, start turning in a couple car lengths before the caution light, and just a little crack and then back into it. Again, as we saw multiple times throughout my run, I was able to keep it wide open if I wanted to, but that little bit of a crack early really helped me later. And that's what I mean by a crack of throttle. 10-15% out, get it to set, back on it. Left front should be as close to this white line as possible. Make sure you don't get too low or else it'll snap the car around. That's also another common mistake I see in races here. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Not much really more to talk about in 3 and 4 beside that. I think lap 16 is where I move up a lane in 1 and 2, so we can show that here briefly. The goal is going to be to get down to this first seam. So instead of aiming to get all the way to the bottom, I aim to get to the first seam. So I'm still not to my lowest point until well into the corner, even after the break in the wall at this point. But instead of getting to the white line, I get to the seam, nice straight shot up off the corner. Go through 3 and 4 in the bottom again. If you want to run the top, again, seam way above the third seam, or second seam, I guess that is. And really just trying to find grip up there to maximize your on throttle time and generate momentum up off. Same thing in 3 and 4. If you're going to run the top, watch the bump right there. And that's that. And there's plenty of different opportunities from top to bottom to make lines work as the track changes. It seems like dynamic track makes a big difference here at Texas for whatever reason, which is awesome. We love that. So there will be plenty of ability to move around as the races go on, as the temperatures change, as you're in and out of traffic, etc. But remember, the longer you can stay on the bottom, the longer you can keep the rear in check with keeping some throttle out of it, the easier you'll be on the rear tires, which will be crucial later in the run. Otherwise, that's all I've got for this week. That is our Week 7 track guide for Texas Motor Speedway. Appreciate everybody's support, and thank you for watching this video. I hope this video, among the others that we do, are of value to you and they're helping you out. Thanks again. Have a great week at Texas, and we'll see you next time.